Welcome to the Wellness as a Way of Life podcast, your one-stop, all-encompassing source of wellness, knowledge, wisdom, inspiration, and motivation. Here we teach you why not all wellness trends are for you, how to figure out which ones are, how to best adapt them for your personal wellness toolbox, and how ultimately to integrate your wellness practices so fully that they become to feel like brushing your teeth. A foundational part of who you are and not a check mark on your to-do list. Here we know that in order for health and wellness to be sustainable, we need a less is more approach, leaving the information overload and tips overwhelm behind. I'm your host, Megan Swan, creator of the Wellness as a Way of Life course and the Sustainable Integrated Wellness Approach. I have more than a decade of experience in the wellness industry and on my own personal wellness journey, learning how to tune into and trust my intuition and drown out all the noise. As a certified IIN health coach, detoxification expert, plant-based chef, yoga teacher, and coach, I will help you distill down the information overload and feel more confident and at ease in your own skin again. So let's swan dive in. Welcome back to Wellness as a Way of Life. I'm excited to get into the fall season for this podcast. So many fun, delicious topics that I have in mind. And first off, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper on something that you may have heard of. It's called swamping. I recommend that you Google it with caution because it does have a lot of other sort of urban dictionary meanings. But I'm going to be talking about swamping in terms of the practice of embodiment and release of your emotions in a safe space. So be it a virtual or in-person circle experience where you go around and essentially just clear what you want. And the idea is that you would select sort of one thing. It's not like a dumping of all of your emotional baggage at the moment. You want to be a little bit more selective and intentional. So I had my first experience in being one that was all women, and I'd say where we really felt safe and sacred in our space so that we all really let go. I have had the experience on retreats before where in a circle situation, we were allowed to, share what we came to the retreat to release, and maybe give a little bit of context, but it didn't have quite the same practice as I experienced just yesterday when I had my first Sacred Women. It was all women on the call. It was a virtual setting. And I was actually saying to my friends or fellow goddesses on the call that there might be something uniquely sacred about it being virtual, because I believe when you're in your own home, you might have a different level of comfort and sort of letting go. But of course, I'm sure it's powerful in person in different ways. So I look forward in the future to having access to a women's circle. It's actually something I'm looking forward to creating sort of more in-person events when I'm living in Canada again, in Calgary specifically. So more on what's swamping. So the process that I experienced was you set an intention on something you want to release, and what is the emotion that you want to go into, that you really want to feel into, you want to be, you want to embody, and then you pick a song that helps you embody that. So a lot of the women were picking, like Rage Against the Machine type music that really helped them rage, if you will, or get express frustration, anger, rage. And then others picked more softer songs or more meaningful lyrics maybe, and it wasn't the music itself that got them into the state. It was more of the lyrics and the meaning of the song. And obviously there's no rules, I would say, around exactly how you need to swamp. But I think this is sort of like a good template, and then you can make it your own. And I would suggest that if you don't have access to a women's circle, or, maybe look for one in your area, you could certainly just start this with a trusted bestie. I know that where I've heard two women talk about this more in depth is on Layla Martin's podcast. It's called This Tantric Life. And she and Mama Gina were discussing how they basically are like their swamping buddies, if you will, or have been in the past when each of them were going through tough times. So I think that's another way to look at this. This practice is it doesn't need to start with a bunch of women around a fire per se. It can really just be a little more intentionality about how you are being in your feelings, feeling your feelings, acknowledging them, allowing them to process through you, move through you with movement and music, and allowing at least one trusted other being, sort of witness you and, honor you in that process, instead of you feeling like it's something you need to suppress or that others might judge you for. It's just about the power of owning how you actually feel, even if it's petty, right? Like that's where it gets sort of muddy, I think, for a lot of people, particularly as women, as we are very much socialized to not express our feelings, or certainly in only certain appropriate, in air quotes, scenarios or environments or people. But I don't think anyone is encouraging us or there's very few safe spaces that we're encouraged to really talk about our anger and express it. Rage rituals are one of my favorite topics. I think I might do a whole other podcast on rage rituals, come to think of it. But really just having like an intentional practice and the space, allowing yourself the space to feel into what you're actually feeling. So really common one, I think, as mothers, or maybe you're not a mother, but you're just a people pleaser. They sort of, the frustration is one and the same in that you feel like you're constantly giving and you're not either or being acknowledged, or that there's just not gratitude or to the same degree, and or no one's taking care of you. No one's offering to sort of, meet you at some point and allow you to be the one being taken care of once in a while. And I think most women can relate to this, where it's just this conundrum where you, on some level, feel good about yourself when you're being what one perceives as an ideal, you're fulfilling your role to the best of your ability. And you do on some level feel good when you're being loving, you're being of service, you're making your family a really nice, beautifully prepared, nutritious meal. And then the also deep, real cycle that often, people are just in their own world, so they're maybe not appreciating like all the time and effort that went into what's being presented to them, or they're in a point in their lives, an age category where they would be much happier just eating plain pasta or something completely different, or they are just feeding back like negative things about what's being presented to them, or that they don't have time to eat, or they cancel on coming home at the last minute. These are all just the realities of day-to-day life, right? But it's what happens over time, right? It's the buildup of just feeling like you're giving more than you're receiving, and there's what's the word I'm looking for? that there's, it's not an equal, not that everything needs to be equal all the time, but there doesn't feel like there's harmony in the give and take in the household, whether it be in a relationship or, just in general in the household. So sometimes it's really nice to just have this safe space where it's not that you necessarily even need something to change, although, anger is usually an indication that our boundaries are being crossed on some level. So it's definitely worth considering post-swamping session. Is there a conversation that maybe needs to be had? But really and truly, swamping in it itself is just allowing you to actually feel the level of anger and frustration you are experiencing, instead of suppressing it, because I'm sure you've heard before, what you resist persists. So if you're constantly trying to pretend that you don't feel angry about the role that you're, having, or at some point thought you wanted to fulfill, or you're just feeling not appreciated, not seen, not heard, that is frustrating for everyone over time. And not dealing with it, or not allowing yourself to say, hey, this is frustrating, I'm angry, and really just sort of letting that emotion, because remember, emotion is energy in motion. That's all it is. It doesn't define us. It's not a part of our identity. It's not an indication of what kind of person we are. It is completely natural and ideal that we are experiencing full spectrum of emotions in a said period of time. It doesn't necessarily need to be within a given day or week, but at some point in a year, we're probably going to be grieving something. We're going to be sad about something. We're going to be angry about something. We're going to be irate and frustrated about something. And if you are not going through these full spectrum of what, a lot of society would perceive or have us believe are quote unquote negative emotions on the negative end of the spectrum, it's going to be a lot harder to feel comfortable and really enjoy and ease into emotions like joy, like elation, like appreciation, like relaxation, ease. I've heard recently from multiple clients that what they're experiencing is they have time to themselves on the calendar even, so points, kudos. Yet when that time comes around, it's just very hard for them to enjoy an hour off, because the layers of guilt, they should be working on this project, they should be helping this volunteer thing, they should be doing this thing, or even just they want to really curate their time off. So I'm going to, finish listening to this book and do these journal prompts, and all while having a bath and, trying to do some breathing exercises. It's like, no. Just slow it down and actually sit in the ease, in the relaxation is becoming increasingly hard for people. And that's because we're just so wound up and oftentimes not allowing ourselves to feel the negative or the emotions that we perceive as negative. And therefore, when this window of time comes around to feel the positive emotions, it's very hard to just sit and enjoy them and take them all in, soak it up, soak up the ease, soak up the joy, soak up the appreciation, soak up the pat on the back, job well done, we accomplished our goal. And I really believe that in the long run, it's this ability to live in full emotional spectrum that is essential for optimal wellness. So a few seeds planted on swamping. I will put a few references in the show notes if you want to do more research, or reach out to me if you at some point would be interested in a virtual swamping group. I am putting that on my vision board for 2024 to start a swamping virtual Swamping women's group, and into the second half of 2024, hopefully I'll be able to do some of them in person in the Rocky Mountains. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Wishing you optimal wellness. Big love. Bye for now. Hey there, one last thing I wanted to share with you. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you could rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. It really does help us grow the show, and this being so important to me to get this message out to more women to help them optimize their wellness and ultimately their lives. This is my mission, and I would greatly appreciate it if you could support the podcast by rating and reviewing. Thanks in advance. Have a good one.